Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. Historically, women have been told to make themselves smaller, to diminish themselves. Some have used that idea to their advantage, disappearing into new identities. For others, a disappearance was the end of their stories, but the beginning of a new chapter of their legacies. This month, we're telling the stories of these women. We're talking about disappearing acts. On May 10, 1940, Nazi Germany began its invasion of France. The campaign destroyed livelihoods and also culture. The Nazis had a particular interest in pillaging the belongings of Jewish people, museums, and galleries. They wanted the center of beauty to be in their territory. In this quest, they trafficked art across Europe with such fervor that some of the world's most meaningful paintings were almost lost. But there was a woman so dedicated to the preservation of art that she risked her life by hiding in plain sight. Today, we're talking about Rose Valland. Rose Antonia Maria Valland was born in a small town in southwest France on November 1st, 1898. She didn't come from a wealthy family, but she was extraordinarily bright. She studied art history at the best schools across France, including the École du Louvre and the Sorbonne in Paris. Her level of education was rare for anyone at the time, especially a woman. Rose eventually became an art historian and started volunteering at the Jeu de Paume, a museum that showcased contemporary works from foreign artists. She may have seemed quiet and unassuming, but she knew each collection in the museum inside and out. She set up exhibits, kept records, and wrote catalogs about incoming projects, purely out of her love of art. She was not paid for her labor. Unlike many of her peers, she was not independently wealthy and had to work as a teacher to supplement her income. In other words, art was her center. In 1933, a few years after Rose began volunteering at the museum, she noticed a disturbing new trend. Over the border in Germany, Nazis were beginning to condemn modern art. She and Jacques Joujar, the director of French National Museums, quietly began labeling the cultural goods in their collections. They had a feeling the Third Reich would soon set its sights on France and its culture. By 1938, Rose had become the lead curator of Jeu de Paume. It was clear the situation in Germany was escalating, so Rose and Jacques revved up their own efforts. They started shipping artwork out of Paris, hiding pieces in castles and safe houses in the countryside. Rose's hunch was spot on. By 1940, the Germans had fully taken over France and its cultural sector, including the Jeu de Paume. Rose's beloved museum was no longer a place for the public to enjoy, but a sorting house for looted artwork. But Rose refused to abandon her post. So she chose instead to hide in plain sight. Her modest nature and dowdy style allowed her to conceal her extensive knowledge. The Nazis believed that she was just a lowly secretary. So Rose remained the only French citizen allowed in the converted museum. Hitler planned to create a world-renowned museum in Austria. Artworks headed that way were often sorted and stored at the Jeu de Paume. While new shipments came in, Rose recorded visits from Nazi officials in a small notebook. She also knew German, so after work, she would return home and dump everything she heard from that day onto the page. She reported all of it back to Jacques, her partner in avenging art. Jacques then passed on the information to the resistance movement, allowing them to keep tabs on priceless items throughout the war. It wasn't all smooth sailing for the elusive Rose. She was dismissed from the Jeu de Paume 4 times by the paranoid Nazis. But Rose, soft-spoken and diplomatic, always talked her way back in. As the war raged on, Rose became increasingly comfortable in her spying. She made fast friends with the truck drivers and security guards employed by the Germans. They trusted her so much that they would tell her which apartments were being ransacked and which trains were being loaded up with stolen art. By 1944, the liberation of France was on the horizon. An American platoon filled with museum directors, curators, art scholars, and educators, called the Monument Men, landed in France. Their goal? Recover all the stolen artwork. Rose's longtime conspirator, Jacques, put the Monument Men in touch with Rose, but she was suspicious. She'd been undercover for so long, been vigilant for so many years, that she had a hard time trusting the men. The men also struggled to see Rose as an ally. This meek little woman was really a spy? But all of that changed one August morning. A train filled with paintings by artists like Degas, Gauguin, and Picasso was ready to depart for Germany. But Rose was on the case. She shared a copy of the Nazis' shipment order with Jacques, who passed the information to the resistance army, who derailed the trains and blocked the tracks. The delivery was thwarted, and so began a working relationship between Rose and the monument men. She sent them to castles in Bavaria, to homes across southern Germany, even a booby-trapped salt mine with more than 10,000 pieces of art inside. Soon after the liberation of France, Rose joined the First French Army. She traveled across Europe to oversee the return of thousands of crates of artwork. Under her direction, art was shipped directly to Paris, bypassing collection points where pieces could have been re-trafficked or damaged. When she returned to France in the 1950s, she was appointed head of the Works of Art's protective services at the Louvre, and she began working on her memoir. In it, she refrained from depicting herself as a hero. Instead, she described her sacrifices as a duty. After retiring, Rose volunteered in the art world until the end of her life in 1980. Although Rose was an officer of the Legion of Honor and played an undeniable role in protecting her nation's history, her funeral was not that of a decorated war hero. In fact, not one official representative came to pay respects. For years, Rose's legacy was buried with her. It wasn't until 1994, when Lynn H. Nicholas published a detailed account of the Nazis' practice of looting art, that Rose's legacy was brought to light in the general public. Compared to the monument men who were aided heavily by Rose, her story's still little known. But the detailed notes she took after long hours working at the Jeu de Paume led to the discovery of more than 60,000 pieces of art. Her legacy touches people every day, whether they know it or not, through the paintings on the walls of museums all over the world. All month, we're talking about disappearing acts. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. Talk to you tomorrow.